Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purna Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, that Brahman is infinite. This phenomenal world is also infinite. But this is only a projection of that. Nevertheless, if this is taken away, that remains infinite as before. Om, peace to the individuals, peace to the planets, peace to the animals. So we'll just read through the verses we've covered already. So in this changing world, everything is subject to change. Yet everything is covered by the Lord. Practice renunciation and be strong in the consciousness of the self. Do not run after anyone's wealth. A man may wish to live for 100 years, performing his duties as prescribed by the scriptures. Well, man, if you do your duties in this way, then the results of whatever you do will not cling to you. There is no other way. There are worlds known to be sunless and fit for demons. They are enveloped in darkness, such as what the blind, in other words, those devoid of self-knowledge, experience. Those people who have neglected the attainment of self-knowledge and have thus committed suicide, as it were, are doomed to enter those worlds after death. Brahman is one without a second. It never moves, yet it goes faster than the mind. It is always ahead. The sense organs can never catch up with it. It is still, yet it defeats all in a race. By its power, the Lord who dwells in space upholds water and everything else in the phenomenal world. That Brahman moves and it does not move. It is far off and it is also nearby. That Brahman is made of this and is also its outside. Is inside of this and is also its outside. He who sees everything in himself and himself in everything never hates anything. When a person knows that he himself has become everything and he knows the oneness of things, how can he hate or love anything? So those are the verses we covered. And as I mentioned last week, this is the kind of the theme, kind of a special theme of the Isha Upanishad, is the idea that the one consciousness, the one Brahman is pervading everything. And that Brahman, that all-pervading Brahman, is our all-true self. Because it's when we go down to the root of our being, what we find there is consciousness. When we get beyond the body and we get beyond mind and personality, beyond the sense of individuality, we discover that our real self, who we really are, is actually one with that infinite, all-pervading self, which is equally within everybody else. So now at this point, I want to take a little side trip. This is a book called Parentheses in Eternity by Joel Goldsmith. I quoted from him occasionally in the past. He is like a modern mystic. I think he passed away in the 60s or somewhere around there. He was a good friend of Swami Prabhupada out in Hollywood. And he's just has this, when we study the Upanishads, we study these Vedantic truths. These are also the basic spiritual truths that you find in mystics from every tradition. And so he is kind of very good writer about this. And I want to read a chapter. This is called The Tree of Life. But it gives us an idea of what we mean by this idea of the one self in all. So to understand the nature of the mystical way of life, and to understand it fully, we must first of all understand the underlying conflict that exists among human beings, the struggle between all men on the face of the earth. Even between husbands and wives, parents and children, there is conflict. And the conflict is always a battle for the supremacy of the ego. each one wants to be something of himself, and that something enters into conflict with the something of the other self. So it is that throughout the human scene, there has always been conflict. True, there is an appearance of peace, but as long as each one has a self of his own, he will be catering to that ego, trying to manifest, express, or benefit it. This poses the question, so is it possible for human beings to live together harmoniously? Or must they live in constant warfare of one nature or another? None of the efforts made to bring about peace on earth and goodwill among men has ever been successful for any length of time, largely because these efforts have been based on attempting to unite people humanly, when for the most part they have no common interest. So some contend that in union there is strength, but this is a fallacy. Ever since time began, tribes have been uniting, countries have been uniting, and churches have been uniting. But so far, no such union has brought about permanent strength. It lasts for a while, then some other combination arises and falls to make way for still another combination. There is no strength in any union founded by human beings, nor has one ever proven to be enduring. So the only strength there is in spiritual union. But that in itself is a paradox. There cannot really be a spiritual union because there are not two to unite. There is only one self. And as long as I recognize that the selfhood of me is the selfhood of you, I cannot be antagonistic towards you. But neither can I unite with you because there are not two of us. There is only one. There may be many forms, but back of the forms there is the one. So true peace can be established between us only when there is a subjugating of the ego in the realization that there is but one ego, but one self. And God is that ego, that self. And God constitutes the self of every individual. Now, instead of being in conflict with one another, we are united. There may be 100 papayas on one tree, but there is only one life, one tree. And anything that injures the tree ultimately injures all parts of the tree. The life of the tree constitutes the life of every branch and of every piece of fruit on it. If each papaya felt that it had a life, a dignity, and an identity of its own, there would soon be a struggle. Only because of the oneness of the fruit with the tree can the tree, branches, and fruit all abide together harmoniously. Now, for a moment, try to visualize a branch of a tree that is cut off, set off by itself, having no relationship with the tree whatsoever, and you will understand what is meant by two-ness. Moreover, were it possible for any one part of the tree to have an ego, it would also be possible for a branch to become envious of all the good that is on the tree and wants some of it, or the tree, seeing the glory of the branch, might want to subdue or possess it. But look again and see that branch back on its tree. Now there is one tree and one life. And the life of the tree is the life of every branch of the tree. There is no union because there are not two. There is just one. There can be dozens of branches, but there is only one life, one intelligence, one source of supply, just one. And therefore, no single branch of a tree could ever be in conflict with any other branch of that tree. So as we understand this about the tree, soon we shall also be able to understand and realize that there is a tree of life, a central source of life, and that we are all parts of that life. We are not separate branches, as we appear to be, but we are bound together by an invisible tie, which is life itself, the central theme of being. Life is the tree of which we are all branches. And we all derive our life, intelligence, love, care, and protection from the same source. So let us return once more to the branch that has been cut off from the tree. A branch that at this moment is laden with fruit. Imagine how proud that branch of the tree might be of its wonderful fruit, and how it might think, what a glorious thing I am. I'm so beautiful. I have such exquisite flowers. I can bear such luscious fruit. Then imagine what might happen to all this fruitage in just a few days when, because the branch has been severed from the tree, life is no longer feeding that branch. And when life no longer feeds it, there is nothing left for it to do but to wither, and naturally, there will be no more flowers and no more fruit of which to be proud. This is similar to what happens to a person when he believes that he is intelligent, good, strong, wealthy, healthy, or moral. Think what happens to this person when one of these days, wandering around as a separate branch, he begins to feel himself withering up inside. And hears his friends say, oh, that's natural, you're just getting old. But it is not natural at all from the spiritual standpoint. It is natural only because he has been feeding his ego and believing that he of himself is something, when the truth is that he is something only because he is one with the tree of life. So those who are living the ego life are fighting or competing with one another, trying to supersede or be better than another, richer or more beautiful, living a life of friction, because there's always a sense of two-ness. Wherever and whenever there's two-ness, there's bound to be friction, because one person is always hitting up against the other. But all this friction disappears. All the competition and all opposition disappear in the realization of oneness. When the conviction of oneness is realized, we perceive that each branch derives its good from its source, and therefore there is no need for one branch to compete or fight with another branch to try to get the better of or overcome another, because each branch then realizes what John Burroughs so beautifully expresses in his poem, Waiting. My own shall come to me. Why will it come? Because it is coming to us from our source, not from another branch, not from somebody else, and not from going out into the world and trying to get it. This removes any desire or compulsion to take anything away from anybody else or to draw anything to us from any outside source. My own shall come to me, mine, not yours. So our own will come to us from the source, because we are branches of the tree of life, and we are fed by the life of that tree, which finds a way to draw to us out of the ground whatever our particular nature requires. The function of a branch is to be still and know that it is not merely a branch, but part of a tree. When we look at a tree from afar, we do not dissect it and point out that here is the trunk of a tree and there is the leaf. No, we see the tree as a whole, constituted of trunk, branches, leaves, and fruit. So is the tree of life constituted of you and me and all the other yous and me's in the world. And even though our particular function may be that of a branch, a part of the tree, nevertheless, we are the tree itself. As long as we are united with the tree, whatever it is that is functioning, the life of the tree is supplying us with our wisdom, love, guidance, direction, activity, remuneration, recognition, and reward, with whatever it is that is to become a part of our life. The ego man, the man of earth, is always asserting himself in the world, discussing, arguing, striving, competing, fighting. The contemplative, the man of God, may be out in the world doing whatever his work may be, but mentally and spiritually, he is at home within his own being. The contemplative does not withdraw from an active life, In fact, he may become increasingly active. He would undoubtedly be better qualified to be the president of a corporation than an ego man, because the ego man could accomplish only what his own mental powers could encompass. But the contemplative would draw his wisdom from an inner source to which the ego man would have no access. So the contemplative knows that the branch cannot dictate to the tree, and that the branch need not tell the tree what it needs or when it needs it. The branch knows that it has to be still and let the tree manifest its own glory. And any glory that the tree manifests will be showered upon and shared with the branches, and that will include all that the branch may need. The only function of the branch is to be still and let, and in due time the life of the tree will provide the branch with all that it needs. And then, when the branch is full of flowers and fruit, instead of taking pride in it, the branch will be humble and remember that it is but showing forth the glory of the tree, and that of its own self it did not and could not create this beauty, this fruit, or this wealth. So as good begins to unfold in our experience, whether it is peace, harmony, health, or abundance, whatever it may be, we have to develop that deep humility which enables us to recognize that this is the showing forth of God's glory. God showing himself forth as our health, our life, and our supply. And in the recognition of this, we are contemplating God's grace, his love, omnipresence, and omnipotence. In dwelling in that contemplative state, we are permitting the law of life to function in our mind, being, body, and business. Furthermore, the flow is normal because it is not cluttered up or cut off by an ego trying to boast and preen itself or give credit to itself. It is so easy to think that we can be of benefit to one another. This is the natural belief of the natural man, the ego man. One branch cannot really benefit another branch, however, because whatever benefit may come to you or to me through each other is really only the life itself using us as its instrument. The blessings that come into our experience from any direction are really God itself flowing to us. It is true, of course, that as servants of the Most High, we also serve each other, but we serve only as instruments of God. So the truth that enables us to serve each other is knowing that I have nothing of my own to give you, and you have nothing of your own to give me. We derive our good from the same source because we are one tree. We are the manifestation of one tree of life, and by an invisible bond, we are all branches of that one tree. The person who knows this is beginning to purge himself of ego because he does not see himself as the source of someone else's good. He is thinking only in terms of one, not of two. Where there are two, there will eventually be friction, even when temporarily one is doing good to another. The antidote for all friction is a realization of oneness. We must keep consciously before us a picture of the tree of life, and we must see ourselves as branches of that tree, each growing from the center to the circumference, with no dependence upon one another, yet with cooperativeness because we are part of one complete whole. So in the mystical life, a person lives constantly and consciously as out from the center, in the realization of oneness. And with every temptation to see trueness, opposition, or competition, he inwardly smiles in the realization that be not afraid, it is I. There's only one of us here, not two. There is not a me in danger, there's not a me in competition, there's not a me and an enemy. That is trueness. So the way of the mystic is not a struggling to overcome enemies and a striving to make friends. The mystic knows, it is I, it is I. This tree is all there is. Even if I am seeing 1,000 different branches, it is one tree. It is I, be not afraid. There is one tree of life, and we are all one in that tree, and of that tree. So the mystic has had long months, and sometimes even years, of being faced with outward temptations to believe in two-ness, to believe that there is a me and another. And he has overcome such temptations by the ability to look around and realize that while there may seem to be 12 different persons, actually they are all one tree, all parts of the tree of life. And therefore, whatever is good for one is good for the others. This is the Master's teaching of love thy neighbor as thyself. And it is only when we are seeing our neighbor as a part of this tree of life that we are loving him as ourselves. We are seeing him fed from within, sustained, strengthened, healed, and resurrected from within, needing no outside help. So in living this life, the mystic becomes a blessing without consciously desiring or attempting to be. All those who come into his presence feel something emanating from his consciousness. In what it is that they feel, not any desire to do good, just the ability to live at the center in this contemplation of oneness. So the ego man is always desiring something out here. He's always getting something, doing something, achieving something. And that inner and outer resultant turmoil can be felt. The mystic is always living at the center of his being. Regardless of what work he is performing, he is not reaching out to attain or to compete. He is not striving to get anything from anyone. He is at rest. And that rest is felt by everyone who touches his consciousness. That is, everyone of a sensitive nature. So whenever competition, opposition, or friction of any kind comes into our experience, we return to that center of our being. And by realizing that we are not two, but one, we again establish the order of divine harmony. As long as we can translate an appearance of two-ness into the picture of the tree of life, we are the light of the world and a blessing to it. The principle which would unite people and ensure harmonious and fruitful relationships in the family, the community, and eventually the state, the nation, and all the nations of the world, is conscious oneness with God. When a person carries this relationship of oneness with God into his business or professional life, he increasingly draws into himself those who are more nearly represent his state of consciousness. The key to a fulfilled life, as well as the key to success, is in oneness with God. Only in our relationship of oneness with the Father can we have a permanent bond at any and every level of human existence. On the level of friendship, the marital, the social, and business levels. We can be one through our oneness with God, and in that oneness, joy flows, a joy at every level. It is only in oneness with God that peoples of all the world are united in the household of God. Americans, English, Chinese, Japanese, Africans. In that oneness, we are of the same household, our relationship with God, our fellowship in the Spirit, and our communion with God unite us in communion with one another. One day, we shall be able to prove that when a person makes God contact, the first order of business on his agenda, he will draw to himself in marriage someone interested in the spiritual way of life, someone searching for God, someone who is also seeking to attain conscious union with God. And that common interest will be the bond that will enable them to enjoy a marriage fruitful in every respect. there are so many factors involved in marriage: companionship, parenthood, social and community responsibilities, and financial arrangements. But when there is this spiritual rapport, all phases of the relationship fall into their proper place. Without this spiritual bond, even the best of marriages has little or nothing in it but a human relationship, which is sometimes pleasant and oftentimes very unpleasant. So it is not possible for two or more people to live together in God and lie to one another, cheat or defraud one another. It cannot be done. A person would wreck his mind and body who attempted thus to live contrary to the way of God or the will of God, trying to bring his human will, human desires, and human tricks into the spiritual way of life. Whoever attempted to deviate from spiritual integrity would soon be uncovered and be removed. No treachery or devious practices can remain covered up. Nothing is hidden from God. There is only one reason that dishonesty in human relations continues, only one reason. Human beings do not knowingly or willingly expose their conduct to the light of God. They are clever enough to stay away from God, and for a time they succeed in their wickedness. But when they bring themselves close to God, they find that they cannot deviate from spiritual integrity. Nothing that defileth or maketh a lie can enter the consciousness of those who are united in the family and household of God. When we understand that we are one with the Father and that we are the temple of God, is it not clear that sooner or later we will be compelled to live up to that estimate of ourselves? The moment that we can begin to catch the vision, we cannot then violate our integrity, nor can we violate our relationships with others, especially when we realize that inasmuch as we are the temple of God, so is everyone else. To recognize others as well as ourselves as the very temple of God is a step toward fulfilling the commandments to love God supremely and our neighbor as ourselves. The truth is that humanly no one can do that. We can try, but we are on the way only when the first instinct is to want to know God aright comes to us, an inner desire to discover the nature of my kingdom and my peace. Then our relationship to God and man changes. Love enters in, not your love or mine. It is the love of God that has entered into whatever part of our consciousness we have opened to His flow. And that love of God becomes the love for God and for man. We give evidence of our love for God and our love for our neighbor. There is no God hanging up in space, not in the space of this room or above the room, and not in the space above the ground or the space above the sky. The only God there is incarnated in our soul and in the soul of every individual. The only way to love God is to love one another, but not just those others in our immediate environment. That would be such a restrictive sense of love that it would be selfishness rather than love. So if this love that we feel for one another is true love, it makes us also want to help people who are in distress, people of any nation, any color, or any creed. If this love that has entered our heart does not give us an interest in all the unfortunates of the world, we can be assured that it is not the love of God, and we have deceived ourselves. We love one another only because we have opened ourselves to God, and have thereby discovered the God in me and the God in you, and found it to be the same God, the same life and the same love. Even though depressed and despised peoples of the world may not yet know their identity, we do. And moreover, we know that one of these days they will awaken to their true identity, just as those persons whose material needs are being met so abundantly that they feel no need of God will someday awaken to their spiritual identity. There can be peace on earth, peace between nations and men, peace in our communities, peace in our homes. But this peace will come on a permanent basis only when it comes because of some measure of realization of our relationship to God. We ourselves must first attain that realization. As we attain even a degree of realization that God has incarnated Himself as our very being, that we are the temple of God and God dwells in us, we begin to draw unto ourselves from out of the world those who are traveling in the same direction, those whose goal is to dwell in the household of God, the temple not made with hands. The invisible bond with which we are bound together is our conscious union with God. And because of our realized oneness, we draw to ourselves out of the world all those with any measure of love for God. So this is the chapter on the Tree of Life, which gives a good description of this oneness, this presence of God that exists within us as our own real self, but also equally within everybody else. And this is the kind of transforming effect that is, these teachings are not just kind of abstract things that only belong to somebody living in a cave. They actually transform our whole experience of life, and it's the only way that we can really truly be of service to the world. Now, in the world, living as individuals, as he says, some of us are good and some of us are bad. Some of us want to be helpful and do good to other people. Other people don't want to do that at all. But even as a very good person, as a very well-intentioned person, we're still limited by our humanity. We still exist as an individual with barriers between ourselves and the other person and everybody else. And so, according to our education, our understanding, our goodness, our wisdom, we can be some helpful, do some good to the world. But the person who's made contact with the presence of God within himself and has also then become connected with the oneness that's there within everything, and so now his actions are flowing out not of me personally helping you, but of that one universal consciousness expressing itself through me to you. In the same way, when we look out at the experiences that we go through, we find some people are helpful to us, some people aren't helpful, some people we like, some people we don't. If somebody does something good for us, we're very pleased. We're very grateful to that person, which is fine. But when you begin to think in terms of, okay, this person has come and given me a gift or done something nice to me, but then realize it was actually God. God came. God came through this person, using this person as his instrument. God gave me this. Now, your relationship, instead of being a personal relationship between you and one other person, and in fact, in our relationships, a person comes, he does something good for us, we're very happy. We say, next thing he does something bad to us. Now we don't like it anymore. And so like that our human relationships go. But when you're seeing everything that comes to you as God, the one consciousness, using different instruments, there's a part of you recognize the goodness of the person, you thank him, you're grateful to him, but a part of you recognizes that this has actually come from God himself. Now you're not getting into the tangled into the human relationship. So good and bad, or being pleased or unpleased, you're always seeing the spiritual import of things. And this gradually grows into a consciousness and a true awareness of this one self, this one being. And this is why the Advaita non-dualism is considered kind of the ultimate, kind of the apex, the highest level of religion, because you can go to heaven, you can experience a wonderful spiritual being, you can even become a god yourself, or anything, but the highest reality is that to be one with that which is everything. Not just a really nice person or a really powerful person or a good person, but to realize that become united with that one, which has become that good person and also everything else. And earlier when we talked about the idea of creation, we use this idea of thinking in terms of mental creation. That when the novelist creates his world, his book, and all the characters in it, that entire world, and all the characters, everything, is contained within the consciousness, the mind of the author. It's not something separate. And we mentioned it because if the characters in that book were conscious and they begin to ask, who made me? They can look around everywhere they see, everybody they ask, they won't find anybody that made them. But yet all the time, what made them, the one who made them, the author, is right there. Right? Because it's his consciousness which contains them and which sustains them. In the same way we're in this world, kind of there's this novel, there's drama going on, we're all looking around at different people, asking different people, different gurus, going to different temples, places to see, well, who made me? Where's God? How do I find God? But yet all the time, God is present. And He's present within our own consciousness. And when you realize that presence really, it's everywhere, it's omnipresent, it's everywhere. And it's within everything. And everything in the world, all these is ultimately an expression of that one consciousness. Now we're all here, we're all in this world, for a particular purpose. To serve some part, play some role in the Leela, in the cosmic drama. And most of us, 99% of us, as soon as we get into the world, we totally forget our purpose, and then we run around, and then we come to the end of our life and realize we haven't really accomplished much. But as you move towards awareness of this inner reality, then more and more you'll find yourself fulfilling your destiny. And you'll find more and more that as you stop running out into the world trying to grab things, trying to get this thing, trying to make this thing happen, trying to achieve, as you learn to relax that and begin to develop a sense of surrender to God, that that will be done, you find that whatever you need will ultimately be brought to you. As he mentioned here, when we're connected to the tree, everything the branch needs is given by the tree. It just flows through the tree into the branch. But when the branch is cut off from the tree, and when through ego we cut ourselves off from the divine and say, no, I'm something separate, and all of my kind of glorious powers and abilities, these are all mine, and everything I do, these are all my accomplishments. When we cut ourselves off in that way, then like the branch cut off from the tree, you start to wither. You gradually begin to lose your power, your energy, and so forth, and you get frustrated. You realize you're not really accomplishing anything. But as soon as you're connected to the tree, then everything will start to flow into you. You'll find yourself uplifted, and many people will find this even with a little practice of meditation. It's like recharging the batteries. That with a good meditation going on, it's like you've had a good rest, a good sleep. In some cases you should have, but anyway. But there's a sense of being okay. And if you can make some small degree of connection, say at the beginning of the day, then the rest of the day there's a sense of being protected, of being guided, of being just in tune with things, of being taken care of. And so this is what all the scriptures, and like I said, the Isha Upanishad particularly emphasizes this oneness, to cover everything with the Lord. Realize everything is just the one self, the one consciousness. And this is the ultimate goal. It's not something kind of dreary or abstract. It's something very powerful, which not only brings us to the highest realization, but as we move towards it, it will make society kind of a perfect place. They talk about the golden age, and back in the 60s they had the age of Aquarius and things like that. In Hinduism they call that the Satya Yuga, the age of truth. Because the idea is that as soon as anybody as the smallest, just a little bit of sense of who he really is. That he's a wonderful, glorious, spiritual being. He's a child of immortal bliss. He's a child of God. As soon as any kind of sense of his real nature, a person becomes aware of, automatically, goodness, honesty, integrity, unselfishness, these things will just automatically flow. A person who's developed a little bit spiritually just wouldn't stoop to just go cheating somebody else or lying to somebody else. It just, like you said, just quick can't be done. That when you're in spiritual consciousness, it automatically transforms you into something really wonderful that gets better and better and better as you go. Now, when you look at the world and you look at the world situation, the things going on in the world, all the problems, realize all the problems that the world is having are spiritual. We have enough technology, we have enough science, we have enough resources to really solve all the world's problems. But the problems that are in the world are the result of kind of a lack of spirituality, of selfishness, of greed. I think I mentioned before that just a few weeks ago, I read in the paper an article that said that 82 people in the United States, 82 people have as much money as the bottom 50% of the population. And if you go to any poor country where the whole population is living in poverty, you'll find there's a super rich small group up here, and they're the ones that grab all the money that comes into the country, and they grab it. Lotto and all these things. And just, what's her name? Dixon, $54 million. She's city treasurer, and she stole $54 million from this town. So like that, this is a spiritual problem. And until people become spiritual, you're always going to have problems. You can try to put in laws, you can try to put in treaties, you can try to and the basic thing is that when a person becomes even a tiny bit spiritual, they start to become good and wise. They start to become sensible and good, and they also start to become good, loving people. And when people are good and wise, they can work out all the problems. But when people are bad and stupid, then you're always going to have problems. You'll fix it here, and it'll show up here, like that. And this is the world. It's like a dog's curly tail. Things change one thing after another. Because none of the solutions are getting to the root cause. And the root cause is ajnana, spiritual ignorance. We all think we're different from everybody else. We all think, I've got to get ahead by pushing other people out of the way, by struggling with other people. And like that, we're all bumping into each other. As soon as there's two-ness, and I mentioned a couple weeks ago how one of the mystics, another mystic was saying, two-ness is the source of all violence. As soon as there's a sense of two, that I'm one thing or something else, even though we may like each other, even though we may have basically a good relationship, there's still friction, there's still conflict. Because I want to go to the movies, you want to sit home or something, and so right away, conflicts start to develop. But as soon as you begin to move into oneness, then all conflict disappears. Because what you're expressing is what's coming out of the one consciousness, which is the same self in the other person. And so anything you do is going to be for the best, not only of you, but of everybody else. And you see how life then starts to flow in complete harmony with everything. Even as we try to be good, try to do good in the world, as long as it's coming from us personally, it's always a problem. And I know that parents go through this. They raise their children, they want so much to have their children happy, to be able to make them happy, to make them good children, but yet so often they simply don't know how to deal with the kinds of things that children do. And so there's a sense of struggle and frustration and not being able to cope with things. But as soon as you're connected with the oneness, then you know what to do. Because this is another thing that happens. as a person develops a sense of surrender to God, or a sense of connection with God, all sense of what should I do? How can I handle this? It gradually begins to go away. And you find that whatever you need to do, what you need to say, what action you take, these things will come, and in time, everything will just start to flow spontaneously. When your focus is on the divine presence within you, rather than the situation outside, then you'll find that gradually things will just start to sort themselves out, and without strain or worry on your side. It's a feeling comes like being carried. You know, the small child is carried by the mother. He knows everything okay. He's in good hands, nothing to worry about, and he's just happy. Well, as you begin to surrender to God, that same sense of being protected, of being in good hands, of everything being fine, that begins to develop. And then you'll find that life, including your external life, it will begin to unfold in kind of wonderful ways. That as soon as we stop blocking God, as soon as we get reconnected to the tree, then you'll see how wonderfully life flows, because it's the role of the tree is to give this sap and nutrient to the branch, to the fruit. It's just automatically, that's what it does. And like that, as soon as we connect to the tree, God's grace begins to flow, and it will flow in whatever way is best for us. Not necessarily what we think is best for us, what we want it to be, but when we can kind of let go of our personal desires and wishes and things, and let God's will be done, you see that whatever starts to come will be what will fulfill our particular nature. And this is what kind of spiritual life or the mystical life is all about. The teachings we're studying in the Upanishads, you find these same teachings in mystics from every religious tradition. The ones who have attained actual experience, actual realization, they will talk pretty much the same language. So any questions on this? But this is the idea that as long as we are even trying to be good people, as individuals, we're still not spiritual. Spiritual is when we begin to open up and connect with this deeper reality within us, and begin to discover who we are, what we really are, and what God is, and also then what everybody else is. And then your whole life, everything gets into harmony, into sync with what's actually going on. As egos, we're constantly in conflict with it. We're constantly trying to make things happen that aren't meant to happen, and then we struggle against it and get disturbed and frustrated. When you can kind of let go of all that and begin to get established in your inner consciousness, then you'll see that your problems dissolve. And your because of your sense of having a problem dissolves. And then life is actually just flowing. And we mentioned before that some of the mystics, they say, I'm not doing anything. I'm totally unconnected with the body. I'm totally not the body. I'm totally something. But yet the body, it functions, it walks, it talks, it does everything just as well as when I was holding on to it and thinking, I'm doing this. But anyway, that's kind of a higher state. Don't worry about that so much, especially when you're driving a car or such. But anyway, so like that, these high spiritual truths, they have an effect at every level. And it's not usually a case of just jumping right in. There's different levels as you move up, but every level they have an effect, and they bring in kind of great blessing into your consciousness, into your life. As we mentioned many times before, you can have all the things that the world holds up, money and fame and power and everything else, and still be completely unhappy. But if you get even a little bit of this, you'll be happy. You may not be rich, or whether you're rich or not, it doesn't matter anymore. But you'll have happiness, and you'll be content, and you watch the unfoldment of the infinite glory, divinity that's there within you, and you'll begin and you'll realize that the same wonderful divinity is there within everybody else. And so your whole experience of life becomes one of joy and one of happiness. So any questions on this?
Was that taken from the tree of life? Was it taken from some particular book? Or?
Yeah, it's from a book, Parentheses in Eternity. It is by Joel Goldsmith. Oh, you weren't here at the beginning. Yeah, it's from Parentheses, and it's not in the bookstore. I've had some of his books. His main book is called Infinite Way, and that's there in the bookstore. But he's a very good, it's a very positive kind of approach to spirituality. And I mentioned that he was a very good friend of Swami Prabhupada out in Hollywood. Prabhupada had very great respect for him because he's a genuine kind of mystic and spiritual person. He's this movement called the Infinite Way, which is kind of grown out of his teachings and all. But he was actually Jewish originally, then he got into Christian Science, but then he grew out of kind of Christian Science into spirituality. So. But his writings are very, very positive. Because sometimes, really the whole world seems like a trap. You know, we're all caught here, we're caught on samsara, and we got to escape and get to nirvana. But you need to focus. There's the positive out there. That it's not a negative thing so much as it's like in the fundamentalist churches now. It's you're going to hell. You're going to all these things. It kind of frightens people and gets them to behave. Well, something those negative things that kind of frighten the people get to behave, but really it's all a very positive thing. Moving from a small thing to bigger to bigger to bigger, and watching the unfoldment of what's ultimately the infinite kind of divinity. So, any other questions? So now Swami Isha Upanishad, he left for Canada today. He's going first to Toronto, and then I think he's going to Montreal, Calgary, and different places in Canada. He'll be coming back on the 31st, I think. So he won't be. So Sunday, I'll be doing this talk, but it's going to be a special program. That some of you may remember the film crew that was here back in about a year or so ago. But they finished the film, and it's on Vivekananda in honor of his 150th birth anniversary. And a wonderful job they did. Really fine job, good film. So we're going to show that on Sunday. And then we've got our yoga classes that started Saturday from 9:30 to 10:30. There's aerobics and children's class. Sunday from 10:30, from 9:30 to 10:30. There's the foundation yoga, and also the meditation in yoga. And that's there. And then we have a Sanskrit class. It's now shifted to the library. So all these things are coming up. And we have many Swamis coming later on. Swami Partushananda from New York, he's going to come June 7th and 8th. Swami Nikhilatmananda from India, he's going to come twice in about June 21st to 2030 and do some programs. He does Rama Charitamanasa. So Manasi is going to be here, and other Swamis are also going to be coming over the time. And Swami Isha Upanishad, he gets back, I said, about the 31st. On the 4th of June, he goes to India for like up until the 18th, I think, because the president already wanted to meet him, talk to him, I think. So he's going to India for a while. So all these things are kind of going on. Well, and then Sunday, like I said, I do this, and then Sunday evening, I'm going to be doing a talk at the Hindu temple. You know, at the end of when we have retreat Swamis, we usually do that every Sunday. So this Sunday, I'm supposed to give a talk. I'll be on From the Unreal to the Real at 6:30 at the Hindu temple. Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O Lord, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness to light, and lead us from death to immortality. Om peace,